In movies and other media, you can often hear of dangerous, demonic, scary, and evil mermaids. But in other movies, they are perfectly friendly. When seeing these completely different depictions, you can't help but wonder what is true. Are mermaids evil or friendly? According to most mythological accounts, mermaids are not dangerous. The idea that mermaids are dangerous comes from the myths of the sirens, who were originally different creatures from Greek mythology. Today, both of them are often confused, and this results in the wrong belief that mermaids are dangerous. So let's have a look at the roots of where mermaids came from and why they were friendly and not dangerous at that time. There are, however, also a few cases in which some mermaids could also have more dangerous sides. We'll get into that. So because we believe that mermaids can be both good and bad, this kind of makes them more fascinating, but it also makes them unpredictable in addition to the beauty we often hear of. Originally, however, mermaids were mostly friendly creatures that did not have anything to do with murder or mischief. In fact, the most famous mermaid myths come from ancient Greece, where their predecessors, the sea nymphs and the tritons, lived. It is believed that their depictions were influenced by the ancient Assyrian mermaid goddess Atargatis, and she dates back to around 1000 BC. She became a beloved deity all over the Mediterranean Sea. And then we have the sea nymphs. They were described as beautiful young women who watched over the Mediterranean Sea. It is said that they often traveled through the sea with the sea god Poseidon. And when they noticed that a ship was sinking or that sailors were in danger somewhere, they would then rush to their help. From these first accounts of mermaids, one would have thought that they're there to help and not to harm humans. Let's look into the evolution of evil mermaids. Now, the merging of the two creatures, presumably, it began when the sirens, who originally were described as bird women, they started to be described with fishtails. One of the first mentions of sirens with fishtails was in the Book of Monsters, and this was around 700 AD. Similar to the sirens in the Odyssey, they were described as dangerous creatures that lurk in the water, and they sing their beautiful songs to sailors whom they kill once they come too close. The idea of men seducing and killing monsters, this was widely taken up during the Middle Ages in Europe, when the sirens were commonly understood as demonic creatures. As we know, Christianity governs many things in society and how we see things good and bad. In those times, Christian belief were that the mermaids were sinful and they were outright dangerous. We had medieval writers like Conrad von Mecklenburg in his Book of Nature from the 14th century. He also described the sirens as unvirtuous women who lull men into wickedness. During the later medieval times, another scary creature appeared in many books that described the monsters of the time. They were the sea devils. They were also called sea demon. During the 16th century, Olaus Magnus, he made the Carta Marina, and this catalogued the monsters that lived in the seas around Scandinavia. He described that mermaids and mermen sometimes sneak onto ships at night when everyone thinks they are safe. If the mermaids were staying for too long, that could even result in the sinking of the ship. Furthermore, catching a mermaid in the nets could supposedly result in a horrible storm and even lead to other sea creatures coming from the depths and showing their wrath. When you look at today and how mermaids are depicted, they're both depicted as evil and dangerous, but this concept is derived from the ages of the sirens. So people have this impression that sirens and mermaids are the same. Thus, in movies and series, whenever a mermaid is dangerous, she's often not called a siren, but a mermaid as well. The sirens were the creatures who were known to use their beautiful voices to lull men in. So when we hear that mermaids have beautiful voices, we're not really sure where that came from. This is very confusing, and this is also reflected in Romance languages, in Spanish and other languages that derive from Latin. The word for mermaid is actually siren. For example, la sirena, that's in Spanish. This means that a mermaid could both be friendly and dangerous, and so therefore they're both interpreted as sirens. So it only makes sense that the borders between the two creatures started to merge. If you look at it this way, you could say that mermaids and sirens have become synonyms for each other, and because of that you could say that mermaids can both be friendly and dangerous. Friendly when they behave like mermaids and dangerous when they behave like sirens. This is exactly what we can see in many movies and media today, and why people get confused about it. The most famous and friendly mermaid we all know of is certainly Ariel from Disney's Ariel the Little Mermaid, in that she is similar to the sea nymphs. She saves a drowning person from the ocean, which is Prince Eric. Her family and all other mermaids are generally depicted as friendly in that movie. Other well-known movies with the typical friendly mermaids are Splash, where the mermaid falls in love with a man and she ends up exploring New York City with him, and we also have the series H2O. But mostly, dangerous mermaids can be seen in horror movies. There are a lot of horror movies depicting mermaids as evil in their titles, and thus it adds to the confusion of whether they're good or evil. But this can be very misleading because their wordings are wrong. They don't draw on the original mythology of mermaids, but that of sirens, or they have the beliefs that started in the Middle Ages. So the creatures in these horror movies should actually be called sirens or something completely different. However, it is thought that we do have mermaids from around the world who can both have friendly and dangerous sides. So even though the mermaids who originated in Greek mythology are perfectly friendly, there are mermaids like creatures from myths from other places on earth that can sometimes show a dangerous side as well. A good example is the Mami Water. She is an African water goddess who is also known as the African mermaid. Although she's mostly friendly and helps to heal people, some accounts of her also attest a dangerous side to her. In some parts of Africa, it is believed that she can also bring diseases and be responsible for dangerous parts of the oceans where people drown. Mami Water has many counterparts in Africa and also the Americas. For example, La Siren, the mermaid of Haiti, she's said to often kidnap women and take them to her underwater realm. Some of them would disappear forever, and some of them would return with magical powers that she taught them. We have other water spirits that can be both good and bad. We have the Nixies from the Germanic and Nordic mythology. They were known for abducting children and people who fell into the rivers and lakes they lived in. But they also had friendly sides. The young Nixie's daughter were known to go on land to attend dances and festivals in nearby places where they would mingle with the humans. In some stories, some would even marry human men. Sirens have always been associated with the oceans and also with sailors. They are the children of a river god, so it does make sense that people would portray them as part fish. But could that change have been intentional, or at least on some parts? We have Jane Harrison. She suggests that the tale of an evil sea monster was meant to emphasize the siren's corruption and darkness. In the book Sea Enchantress, the tale of the mermaid and her kin proposes that the intention was to give the beautiful sea maiden a graceful fishtail, since a bird's body is hardly seductive in appearance. Different lines of thought there, but it has the same effect. But whatever caused this evolution, it is clear that people believe that mermaids are the true and direct descendants of the ancient Greek siren.